million question that comes on the heels of every major tragedy is who is to blame. Hopey. This comes from a place of attempting to keep massings like the one in Florida just weeks ago from happening again. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. When someone makes a huge mistake and has blood on their hands, they typically want to divert blame in any direction that they possibly can. While the facts are still being sorted out by the powers that be, it's becoming more and more apparent that there could have been more done to take down the in this month's horribling spree in Parkland, Florida. Even though the students were blessed enough to have teachers selfless enough to put themselves between the students and the bullets, it turns out that they might not have been fortunate enough to have law enforcement that would do the same. At this point, the question is whether the cowardice originated from a few individuals, or if dispatch actually asked the offices in the area to stand down and not enter the building. According to Newsmax, the Florida Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is being tight-lipped on the issue, and we're left with more questions than answers. Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi wouldn't comment on why members of the Broward County Sheriff's Department would not go into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School to confront accused school shooter Nicholas Cruz, or whether a stand-down order had been issued, keeping the law enforcement officers outside. Also, she told Fox News Fox Friends, Governor Rick Scott has not called on Sheriff Scott Israel to step down over the criticism about how members of his department handled the February 14 Parkland, Florida school shooting. Governor Scott has not called for him to resign, but for investigation into the matter, Bondi said. I firmly believe that needs to be accomplished. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement will be investigating him. Bondi added that with all she knows in the case, there needs to be an investigation. I don't think some people were honest, said Bondi. We're going to investigate this in Florida and the right thing will be done. But when show co-host Steve Doocy asked her if there was a stand-down order for the deputies who remained outside the school, she said she couldn't talk about that. Let me put it this way, she said. When you have a school of students and your duty is to protect those students, even if I didn't have a firearm I would have gone into that scene. That is what you do. That is what the coach did, who is a true hero. Your job is to protect those students. Bondi also said she believes there were people from the scene of the shooting who were not honest with her or the governor. If they were there, they didn't want people to know they were there. That could have been it, she said. I'm not going to discuss that. Bondi also commented on President Donald Trump's call to arm school teachers, pointing out that he is not calling for all teachers to have a gun. I think it is the way it has been presented that every teacher is going to be handed a gun when they walk in the door, she said. My whole family was teachers. I wouldn't want them to carry a gun, nor would they. We will have highly trained teachers. People with expert shooting ability. And SS. It takes a lot of SS. We have air marshals on planes and we have to protect our kid in our schools. So it has to be the way it is done. It is not arming every teacher, only certain people who can protect our kids. The question we now have to answer is whether law enforcement in Broward County is actually working toward finding the answer or just covering themselves. The lack of information sharing is troubling in this case, partly because of the obvious mistakes that were made. If it really is policy to not rush toward an armed gunman who's picking off students and teachers like he's in a video game, then that policy needs to change. There are few ways to incorporate protect and serve other than to take out anyone who wants to the people you're supposed to be protecting. At this point, we're left wondering how high the corruption might go. If the Attorney General and even the Governor of Florida is taking an interest in this story, it makes one wonder what stake they have in it. No matter who is to blame, we must make sure that we do whatever we can do to make sure that shootings like this one never happen again, no matter who has to fess up. HT Newsmax. Follow us on Facebook. Proud sponsor, Destin Charter Fishing. From the web powered by Zergnet. Navy SEAL who killed Bin Laden tossed off plane. The disappointing double life of Tim Tebow. The truth about the Obama sisters' awkward Olympics wardrobe malfunctions. You can't unsee why people stopped watching The Big Bang Theory. 14 rooms in the White House you probably never knew existed.